I thought having a baby would be easy. After all, women do it all the time. I thought my journey to motherhood would be easy and take about a year. It started when I was 31. My husband and I had been married for 10 years, and we are now both ready and excited to have a baby. When I was 32, my doctor suggested that I take my temperature every morning so I'd be able to know when ovulation was happening. My pregnancy books say that a woman's body temperature in the morning during her period is at a medium level. And when her body ovulates, her temperature drops down and then shoots up to a high level and continues at that high level until her period starts again. My temperature chart, it looked more like the Dow Jones average. It wasn't very helpful. Unfortunately, that same year, my father was diagnosed with lung cancer. When I was 33, my father died. He would never meet that baby we were trying to conceive. 4 months after my father died, no period. But when the nurse called with the results from my pregnancy test, she said, "It's negative." I don't understand. "I'm sorry, you're not pregnant." I guess my period was just late in coming. However, 5 months after my father died, still no period. My doctor suggested that maybe I had had an incomplete miscarriage and there was still some tissue left in my uterus, and that was preventing my periods from happening. So I had a dilation and curettage, but no evidence of a partial miscarriage was found. 6 months after my father died, still no period. There was definitely some problem. So my doctor scheduled me for exploratory surgery to look around and see what might be wrong and to shoot fluid through my fallopian tubes to make sure that they were open and usable. But shortly into the look around, it was determined that the fertilized egg had died at the beginning of my fallopian tube, and they had to be removed. All thoughts of checking out the viability of my remaining fallopian tube were abandoned. After the surgery, my doctor told my husband and me, 90% of the women with one fallopian tube go on to have a baby. I said, "So high? I expected less." He said, "Oh, well, monthly, your ovaries alternate in releasing an egg. And when the ovary without a fallopian tube gets ready to release an egg, the remaining fallopian tube comes over to catch it." Jerry said, "That's great news." I thought, how did I could be one of the 10% that never has a baby. Afterwards, I thought, how do doctors know about that fallopian tube being a good catcher? I mean, there's no camera installed. But I reasoned that there must be some women who have an ovary on one side and a fallopian tube on the other, and they still get pregnant. As you know, after any kind of surgery, patients have to start walking as soon as possible for a variety of reasons. I was on the area in the hospital for OB/GYN patients. And so, of course, it had a nursery for the babies of the OB patients. I remember stopping once during a walk right in front of that window of the nursery. And I made a vow to myself, I'm going to be back here soon. My second baby is going to be in that room soon. Shortly after my release from the hospital, my aunt sent me a letter of condolence. But she included in that letter the phrase, it might be for the best. It might be for the best. I had lost a baby and a fallopian tube. I had a 6-inch incision and I was facing a 6-week recovery period, and it might be for the best. I was furious. For 2 days, I was furious with her. And then I remembered that she had had a miscarriage. So I realized she had written that letter, trying to console me, sharing what she felt had happened when she had a miscarriage. But that was not what I was feeling. I felt that my body had failed me and that I was an incomplete woman. During my 6-week recovery period, I started worrying about trying to get pregnant again. What if this remaining fallopian tube was also damaged and the next fertilized egg also got stuck? Then I wouldn't have any more fallopian tubes and I'd never have a baby. But the only alternative was not to try to have a baby. And then all I would have is a fallopian tube and no baby. This was one of those situations where it's might be damned if you do, definitely damned if you don't. So I just had to go on with that journey. 6 weeks back after my surgery, I was back to taking my morning temperature. You know, that one. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, my periods kept coming. Jerry said, "You'll get pregnant soon," and gave me a hug and a kiss. When we met his sister's baby, who was born the month that I lost mine and had my surgery, I was happy that I had not broke down sobbing. 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, my periods kept coming. Jerry said, "You'll get pregnant soon," and gave me a hug and a kiss. Every time I saw a pregnant woman, I thought, why her and not me? I started to panic that my remaining fallopian tube was damaged, and that's why nothing was happening. But Jerry calmed me down and gave me an extra long hug and a kiss. 9 months, no period. I passed my pregnancy test. Jerry told everyone I was pregnant. I told no one. I couldn't let myself believe I was pregnant, just in case I wasn't. After my first OB visit, my doctor said, "Everything's fine," as he was writing things down in my chart. When I didn't say anything, he looked up, scrutinized my face, and said, "Would you like an ultrasound so you can see that everything's all right?" That's possible? I didn't know that. Yes, I do want an ultrasound. At that time, over 35 years ago, having ultrasounds during a pregnancy were not common. A few days later, I was at my ultrasound appointment. The technician said, "There's your baby." She turned the screen so I could see, and well, it didn't look anything like a baby. It looked like a thumb with such an early ultrasound, but that thumb was dancing in my uterus this time. I cried. It felt as if I had been holding my breath ever since my surgery, and now I could finally breathe. The rest of my pregnancy was uneventful from an OB perspective. Oh, well, my pregnancy books did say that morning sickness lasted 3 months. Mine lasted 5. But that was okay. But on the other hand, my second pregnancy was very event-filled. For instance, early on, I felt these tiny rhythmic movements, not at all painful, but repetitive. When I looked in my pregnancy books, I found out my baby had the hiccups. That was fun. Then later on, when I had a definite baby bump, I was reading and I felt uncomfortable, and I noticed that my baby bump had a protrusion that was coming out of it. I realized my baby was stretching. I said out loud, that's not very comfortable. And I live here too. And gently but firmly, I pushed that protrusion back in. I don't know whether it was a fist or an elbow or a knee or whatever, but thankfully that didn't happen again. And then there were all those kicks, sometimes for no apparent reason, and then other times in reaction to loud noises. Like we were at the Albany Symphony and the timpani went boom, 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 and I got a few shots. Very few of them were painful, but all of them were reassuring. They meant that my baby was still dancing in my uterus. 2 days after my due date, I gave birth to our 8 pounds, 4 ounce baby boy. I remember holding him for the first time in the delivery room. Jerry was right next to me, touching him. I kissed our son's head, and then I looked up at Jerry and we smiled at each other. My journey to motherhood was not simple, and it lasted 4 years. I no longer feel, however, that my body failed me, nor that I am an incomplete woman. Now I just feel that my body had 2 pathways for pregnancy, and one of them worked. Jerry and I often say to each other, having our son was the best thing we ever did, as we hug and kiss. This was definitely a journey worth taking.